This is Marcus Kinney. He was born November 14th, 1965. He served in the military from 1985 to 1990 in the U.S. Army. His highest rank was a Specialist E4. This is May 20th, 2016 in Caledonia, Michigan. My name is Brock Schrader. Marcus is my personal trainer, and my father is here recording.
Strength conditioning coach, but anyway.
This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Okay, Marcus.
Yes, Brock.
So you said you were born in 1965.
That is correct, sir.
Where were you born?
I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
How many siblings do you have? Like,
Wow.
What's your family like?
That's pretty jacked. Well, I have one brother, but then I also have two stepsisters and a stepbrother.
Okay.
But they came along later in life, like when I was in high school. So,
Okay, so
and there's a huge age difference. So
did your parents get divorced then at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
because this ain't Utah.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service? Like, did you know what you want to do?
Before I entered the service, I attempted to go to college for a year. I wanted to be a journalist. I was studying journalism. I wanted to be a journalist, a writer.
Okay. Where did you go?
I went to Ohio Wesleyan University.
Okay. What made you want to be a journalist? Like.
I've always liked writing. I
Okay.
like to write,
Okay.
creatively write, whatever. That's the hobby of mine, writing.
Okay. Did any of other family members of yours serve in the military?
My father was in the Army as well. He was
Okay.
drafted. He was in from 60 to 62. I do not know if any of my other uncles were in the service or not. My grandfather on my mom's side, so my paternal grandmother, was a CB during World War II.
Okay, very
And
cool.
he was stationed in Hawaii. All he did was refurbish stuff. He never saw action in the South Pacific, but he's stationed in Hawaii and he just refurbished and rebuilt whatever tore up stuff was in his way.
Okay, yeah.
Those are the ones that I know of, but I'm sure there were others that were in service throughout.
Okay, did that motivate you at all to serve, or no?
In a roundabout way, it did, because as we get further into this, I was in a situation as a youngster where I had to make a decision on what to do with my life, and knowing that those two individuals had been in the service provided me what I needed to go do that.
No,
Okay.
we're going to be here a little bit longer.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you?
How did you enter the service? Did you enlist, or
Like,
I
I'm sure you weren't
enlisted.
drafted?
No, I enlisted. I was
Okay.
enlisted. I enlisted.
Okay, and you were motivated. Like, what made you want to do that?
Okay.
Well, I went into the service. It started basically when I went to college. I did everything but study,
Okay.
and that's a problem for getting
Yeah.
grades. So first semester was academic probation, and second semester wasn't picking up much anymore. And my mom basically said that if you flunk out of school and you're coming home, you ain't living here for free. You got to get a job and pay rent.
Right.
Or you want to think about some other things, and I knew that I didn't want to have a full-time job and pay rent,
Right.
and I knew at some point in time to not know what I was going to do in the future, but that I had to get a college education, because not many people in my family have a college education anyway.
Right.
So that's what I started thinking about. My grandfather and my dad spent time in the service and knew they had college funds. So then I decided, it was like, well, my best interest then, I'll join the military.
Okay.
And I'll either like it, make it a career, because I've always been a history buff and I've always enjoyed reading military history. So it was I'll either love it and I'll make a career out of it and then retire, or I'll do my time, get out, and then go back to school.
Okay.
So the first 2 years it was great. I loved it. And the last 2 years I was like, Lord, let me get out of this in one piece. I go back to school, I get my education, I'll be good, I promise.
Right.
So that's how that came about to be. So I always kind of laugh when we talk about me being a veteran, because people are always like, well, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. And I'm like, there's really nothing really. I ended up there because of my own stupidity and dumbassery. So there's nothing valiant or noble about it. And even so far as I went to be a paratrooper, jump out of airplanes.
Yeah.
So the job that I had was a communications job. And sitting there talking to the recruiter, he goes, hey, 3-year option. Well, 4-year option, you get a signing bonus. Well, how much is that? It's a couple $1,000. 18, 19-year-old kid, that's a lot of money. I was like,
Right.
yeah. And the guy goes, well, hey, with this job too, you can also be a paratrooper. And I went, what's that? He goes, you jump out of airplanes. And I looked at him real funny again, like, what? And he goes, it's an extra $110 a month. And I went, okay. So there was nothing noble really about it. I needed to grow up and learn some things, and there it was. So that's what I did.
Okay, so you enlisted, and then did you go off to basic?
I enlisted, yep. I enlisted before school was out. So I just really carried on my partying ways for the last couple of months.
Right.
And then it was June 17th was when was my report date, June 17th, 1985. So I hadn't been out of school that long. You know, we finished end of May. I had a couple of weeks, and I was off and going.
Okay.
I did my basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, for my communications trade. I did my training at Fort Gordon in Georgia, and then from there I went to Fort Benning for jump school.
Right.
And then I also went in June. I finished jump school probably about the first week of December in '85, and reported to Fort Bragg a few days later as my first duty station at Fort Bragg in December 1985.
Okay, what does that mean when you say first duty station?
Because each time you get stationed somewhere, it's a duty station.
Okay.
So, like I said, that was the first place that I served. And then, like I said, then a couple of years later, I ended up in Korea. So
Okay.
that could be my second duty station. The second place where I served my duty, I was in Korea.
Okay.
And then after my year plus in Korea, then I came back to Fort Bragg to finish out my tour.
Okay.
Finish out my time. So
So when you
duty
talk
station,
about
but-
basic training and jump training, can you kind of take me through that a little bit?
Basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina in June and July suck because it's extremely humid, extremely hot. So it was very nasty. And I don't think it was. It's a mindset. I tend to think with basic training or any kind of military training like that. It's not much different than sport training, except you really can't walk away.
Right.
You just have to be able to. You just have to be able to take people jumping your bones or on your face, but you also have to not give them any reason to come after you.
Right.
So keep your mouth shut. The thing is, they always say is if you're in the proper place, in the proper time, in the proper uniform, 9 out of 10 times things are going to be okay. So and that's really what it is: proper place, proper time, proper uniform.
Okay.
You know, and the people, oh, I can't stand somebody yelling and telling me what to do. Well, no matter what you do in life, someone's going to be telling you what to do.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
It never gets away from it. There's
Right.
always somebody telling you what to do. You know, even if you got your own business, you got customers telling you what to do. You know, if you work for somebody else, you got a boss telling you what to do. So there's always degrees of people telling you what to do. So it's what can you stand? You know, what can you subject yourself to? And military service is just mental toughness.
Right.
Are you mentally tougher to deal with the bullshit that someone's going to be throwing at you? That's what it boils down to.
Okay, so yeah, it was hot and tough, but did you overall, did you think you did a good job?
Oh,
Did you
I
have
did. It was
fun?
fantastic. I did well. I don't know how I graduated my class, but and all the things that we did, I qualified an expert with the rifle shooting. I took pride in learning how to shoot a weapon.
That's awesome.
And I wanted to take pride in being the best that I could be because I was always a competitive person anyway.
Right.
So I took pride in trying to be the best that I could be, whatever they assigned me to do. So it worked out pretty good.
And then after basic, you went off to jump training.
Yeah, you go to your trade school first.
Okay.
Before the jump training, and that was almost again like going to school.
Right.
So you do your military stuff in the morning. You go do your schooling. You come back. You get lunch. You go back and do your schooling. And you have free time in the evening, and then you do it all over again.
Okay.
You have your weekends off, and they call it AIT, Advanced Instructional Training. I think is what AIT stands for. Advanced Instructional Training. So again, it's almost like being in school. I mean, you have your school hours, and after school you have usually your hours, and then you have weekends off, and then it repeats on Monday. So
Okay.
that's in school. And it's the same thing when you go, same thing in jump school. It was a 3-week course. 2 weeks they teach you how to jump, and the 3rd week you actually jump. You have to get 5 jumps in to earn your wings. So
Wow.
it was the same thing. It's pretty easy. They spend the first day screaming and yelling at people, trying to weed out the softies who don't want to be there.
Right.
And then they spend the rest of the time teaching how to jump. I mean, you could run jump school really in 1 week if you wanted to. But, again, you got to make sure that people are in it for the right reasons and they're really strong enough to ask what you're doing. So.
For sure. And was that fun for you?
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It was jump school, jumping. Being a paratrooper was truly awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the biggest adrenaline rushes you could ever have.
Right.
And sometimes they put us through drills where they would load us up on the planes and fly around forever and jump out of a plane. You knew what you were supposed to do, but you didn't know if you were in the country or not. I mean, you just didn't know because there was unreadiness that you always had to deal with.
Okay.
So it's just a big jump. Jumping out of an airplane at 1,000 feet in pitch black darkness is something
scary.
else. It's not even scary. It's such an adrenaline rush. It's such a contrast too, because everything leading up to the jump is noisy. I mean, getting inspected is noisy. In the airplane, the skin of the airplane is real thin, so you always hear the engines. And your instructors or the guys who are in charge of the jump are yelling, so you can hear them. And then everything is just so noisy. And then once you jump out of the airplane, it's really utter silence. All you hear is the wind whistling through the risers of your chute, and other guys like maybe yelling or talking to each other in the air. But you go from all this noise to almost just dead quiet. It's such a contrast. It's just like, it's unreal.
That's really cool.
It really is unreal.
That's really cool.
It is pretty cool.
So after jump training, then you went to Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, yes.
And what did you do there?
That was my duty station. So again, it's almost if you're not deployed or out in the woods, it's almost basically a job. I mean, you meet up in the morning, you do your physical training in the morning, you probably meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, you physically train for an hour, you go back, get breakfast, clean up, and then you have to report back to wherever your duty station is that day at a certain time. You're there, let's say maybe 8:30 or 9 o'clock, you report, you do your stuff, everybody gets released for lunch with orders to come back by 1 o'clock, so you leave at lunch at 11:30, be back at 1, you come back at 1, you do some more stuff, and you probably shut down shop at 5, go eat dinner, and then you got the rest of the night.
So it's a regular
unless you're on some kind of special duty. Again, you have your weekends.
Right.
Holidays are pretty decent because again, they usually make all holidays 4-day holidays. They take a training day, so you usually have 4-day holidays for holidays. So, it's working a job.
Did you go home at all when you were going through all
Absolutely.
this?
Not during all of my training. No,
Okay.
I didn't. When I left home in June, I didn't come back home until Christmas of '85 in December.
Okay.
So that was the first time I came back home
So
after
just
I'd been gone for
big
6 months.
holidays.
Yeah, and that was the same thing. That once I got to Fort Bragg, I got my own car again with 4-day holidays in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 700 and some odd miles. I mean, I would, we had a 4-day weekend. I would drive from North Carolina back to Ohio, hang out, and then drive back.
Okay.
So, and I ended up usually taking a bunch of guys home with me, so we'd always make a big road trip out of it. So,
Okay.
it's pretty cool.
Very cool. So you were stationed at Fort Bragg.
Yes.
And then were you kind of just informed that you were getting stationed in Korea?
You get what they call orders.
Okay.
And again, I was with a bunch of guys that had a similar contract as mine. So we're all guys that had 4-year contracts.
Right.
And then just about 2 years into it, and about every 2 years in the military anyway, you get orders to change a duty station. It's just
Right.
where about every 2 years you're moving somewhere anyway.
Okay.
So all the guys that had similar jobs in mind, we started getting orders 2 years later in '87 about a next duty station. And some guys started going to Germany, some guys started going to Korea.
Okay.
So you never know. Every time you just go into work that day, you just kind of wait. So someone goes, "Hey, we got some orders for you," and you're like, "Ah!" So I went in. I went in one day and they're like, "Hey, we got some orders for you." I'm like, "Oh, Corey, please be Germany, please be Germany, Korea."
Okay.
So and then then it had when you would be departing and out processing and where you had to be and what was going on. So we would tell you where you're going, what you're doing.
Did that what was your mindset regarding that? I mean,
There was
were you excited to move or
no. I mean, you didn't want to go to Korea.
Right.
Korea's what they call a hardship tour, because again, over in Korea, they're still under a state of war. There's no peace. I mean, and that they call it a hardship tour. So, like, if you were going to Germany and you were married, the military would pay to move your family over there.
Okay.
With Korea being a hardship tour, it's only a 12-month tour. If you're going to Korea, they're sending just you in case some nonsense happening. They ain't responsible for your family.
Right.
They
Okay.
ain't got to worry about getting your family out. All they got to worry about, we got the soldiers over there supposed to do a job, they do their job.
That makes sense.
So, it was kind of like crap. But again, there's nothing else you could do about it. I couldn't go marching down there and say, "Hey, y'all got to change my order and send me to Germany." It don't work like that.
Right.
You're going to Korea.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to Korea.
Okay.
So once you wrap your mind around it, then okay, it's what I got to do. You ready to go do what you got to do?
Did you have any time prior, after Fort Bragg, between, how much time was between Fort Bragg?
I can't remember when my orders came out, but again, I had plenty lead-in time.
Right.
So, and I had to report. I had to fly to St. Louis sometime in January. So I was out processed in Korea sometime probably at the middle of December. And we had holidays, so I took leave. I took vacation time before I went.
Okay.
So I probably took about 2 weeks worth of leave to cover Christmas and New Year's. And then shortly after New Year's, I had to be in St. Louis to fly over to Korea. So
Okay.
I took a couple weeks. And usually guys will do that before they get deployed somewhere else. They'll take leave, they'll take some vacation time, and then go deploy where you're
Just kind of
supposed to go.
reconnect with your families and
Yeah,
let them know
so you
where
get
you're
by,
headed.
because it was one of those things too. It was like, yeah, I'm going to Korea for a year, so I'm not going to see you guys for 12 months.
Right.
I'm
That's gotta be tough.
not taking leave halfway into it to fly home for a couple weeks
Right. That's got
to
be
go
tough.
back. So it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna be there for a year. I'll see you guys. I'll see you in a year.
So, was that pretty hard for you, or?
Yeah, it was tough because there was a young lady that I was dating that I was pretty fond of that meant the world to me, and we had kind of we talked about getting married. We had plans to get married, so yeah, it was a little tough.
Okay. Yeah.
She was the one that picked me up when I came back from Korea, but she didn't. Some friends of mine drove me to St. Louis, but it was tough.
Okay. Yeah.
21, 22-year-old kid in love with somebody, and
Right.
that's who you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with. It's not easy to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It's easy to tell your parents goodbye at a certain age. It's a little bit easier. You had them forever, and it's at some point in time you leave your parents. It's what you do.
Right.
But when you have somebody you think is supposed to be your mate and by your side, it's a very, very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So you're there for a year. Did you have any way to connect back with people at home?
Because again, you got this is 1988. So yes, you write letters.
Yeah.
There were phone calls you could make, but again, now you've got to calculate the time. What
Yep.
time is what time? And again, 1988. It wasn't as easy as flipping up a cell phone and doing something. You had to call. and overseas calls cost a shit ton of money.
Right.
So I think we spoke once, maybe twice over the phone while I was over there, and that was just, again, with the girl that I was dating. I really can't say if I talked to any of my other family members over the phone, but I wrote a lot of letters.
Okay,
I
yeah.
wrote a lot of letters, so that was the main form of communications. I bought a video camera when I was over there, because video cameras were just coming out. So I had this big VHS video camera we used to lug around. So we would make VHS tapes and dub those and send those back to people.
That's awesome.
To show them what Korea looked like, or show us out acting the ass in the dorms, or whatever we were doing.
That's very
So yeah,
cool.
we made a shit ton of videotapes with VHS tapes, and that was kind of one way we documented that stuff.
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. That made it bearable and fun.
So now you're in Korea, and what all did you do?
It was 1988. It was an Olympic year.
Okay.
So I'm going to look dead in the camera on this one, because as soon as we got to Korea, because again, they plan these rotations out. They move people in mass, so that they don't trickle people in over a period of time.
Okay.
So I mean, they probably have it blocked out about every 4 to 5 months. You've got a whole bunch of people rotating in. So those that are there can work on training the other people, just coming in, show them what the ropes are,
Yeah.
and then they can lead them. So that when those people leave, the next wave can take over and handle it.
Okay.
So every 4 to 5 months, you have a new round of people coming in that you're training in. So again, we got there 4 or 5 months, and everybody else started rotating out. But I went there in 1988. That was the Olympic year. So as our first sergeant said when we got there, he was like, "If y'all's asses think y'all gonna be watching the Olympics, your asses is wrong. You're gonna be out there in the woods making things quiet so the North Koreans don't come up here acting the ass." So that was it. So out of a 12-month deployment, I ended up, out of the 12-month deployment, I spent about a total of 8 months actually deployed in the woods.
Wow.
Not sitting back, as they call it in garrison, hanging back. We were actually deployed for 8 of the 12 months total time out in the woods. And we'd go out for a couple of months, come back in for a few weeks, and then go back out for a few more months again.
Wow.
4 to 6 weeks, come back in. So we're kind of rotating the cinema every 4 to 6 weeks.
Did you have like barracks in the woods, or
No.
were you just
Again,
out
me being a communications guy, I was always attached to military intelligence units.
Okay.
So my job was I was responsible for just relaying the information the military intelligence guys were getting up.
Okay.
So again, 1988, my unit in Korea was one of the first units to get Humvees in the
Very
Army
cool.
period.
Yeah.
So we had a Humvee. I got cross-trained for my original job. I got cross-trained in a whole bunch of different jobs for communications. But another one I had, because I had to have a security clearance for my job, and not everybody had the security clearances. So the other job that I picked up, it was called a RAT rig, and I forget what the RAT stands for, radio and teletype, probably, I think is what it stands for. So we had this communication shelter strapped on the back of a Humvee. So that was
Yeah.
it. You would go up in the woods, and they'd probably set you up and set up in a compound, depending on how big the operation was, a small compound or a big compound. But they'd set us up on mountaintops. And I mean, that's what we did, So I'd be out there with another guy, and then whoever else we were in our units with, and me. This one time I went out, it was just me and one other guy, and we would work 8-hour shifts on our communications shelter.
Okay.
So again, and it was kind of cool in the wintertime. So the sleeping bags were awesome, down-filled sleeping bags that kept you warm and anything. So we work 8-hour shifts. So it was the same thing. I'd go in the front seat of the rig. We had bags, I'll toe in the bag, go to sleep for 8 hours. Next thing you know, it was like, dude knocking, "Hey man, you got 10 minutes." So we just worked 8-hour shifts for like 2 or 3 weeks, on and off. We had our meal rations, and they got us at least one hot meal a day, breakfast or dinner. Other than that, we were eating rations, and we're just up on a mountaintop. Oh, that was in November too, because I remember that was my birthday. Because I made a smart-ass videotape of that being my birthday out in the woods.
So you're up on the mountaintops, so that must be very, very cold then.
Yeah, it was cool. Again, that was, like I said, it was born November 14th, so that one I'm talking about now, so that'd have been November 14, 1988. They were deployed up on the mountaintop.
All right, so
it was pretty crazy.
did it ever, did you know the temperature at all, or did you just know it was really cold?
You used to know it was cold.
Okay.
We didn't have access to, somebody knew, I'm sure somebody knew somewhere, but
Okay.
and every now and then we'd hear some traffic, somebody would tell us something about what it was, but
Okay.
cold was cold.
Right. So the military intelligence, those guys, were they on the front lines doing things, or?
One of the things I knew that they were doing, they would look at whatever radar signature patterns that they could find anywhere, because different radars for different things have different signatures.
Right.
So they could find out where ground forces were, where people had ground surveillance radar laid out. You could pick out where anti-aircraft radar was set up. So they were, and as well as just trying to intercept any kind of messages and break the code on those messages. So they would look at a bunch of different things.
So they would send that to you, and then you would send that back to
relay that
base?
to whoever I was relaying it to. Yeah.
Okay.
Or we'd be hopping again with the mountains again. the satellite technology was kind of there, but we still weren't really bouncing communication signals off of satellites that much military-wise. So again, you'd almost have to hop a signal. So what that means is you had guys stationed through mountains. So I would have to relay. I'd either get a message from somebody else and relay it to another site, or I'd have some intel that I'd be relaying to another site. So everything was always moving down a chain.
Okay. Okay.
Again, that was 1988. The communication signals and
Right.
technology is.
You're not just gonna call somebody up.
Yeah, it was nowhere near like it is now.
Okay.
You know, now they, like you saw in some of the movies now, I mean, they got backpack satellite deals.
Yeah, we are.
But the carry satellite stuff back then was kind of rough to use, but the technology was there, but it's not as good as it is now.
Okay.
So it was a little challenging.
So, is that what you did for your entire year in Korea?
Yep.
Okay. And you said 8 months.
8 months.
Out stationed in the woods.
8 out of the 12, yes. Total
Okay.
time. Not 8 months straight, but if you total up all the time, it was about 8 months deployed.
Okay, so when did you get orders then again to come back after your year in Korea?
Another crazy story, man. Because I was there, and and again, usually about the 7th month in, you're supposed to start getting orders because again, they're lining things up the way you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And then being a paratrooper, when you leave Fort Bragg to go out of country, when you come back, you pretty much gonna go back to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
They've invested money to train you how to be a paratrooper. So when you come back to the States, as they call it, CONUS, continental United States, you're going back to Fort Bragg. So I was expecting orders to come back for Fort Bragg. So it was like one day I got some orders again, and I look at my orders, and it says, you have been involuntarily extended to stay in Korea. And I go, what the hell does that mean? So I go down to the people that make the orders and go, what does this mean? They goes, well, here's the deal. Since, because my tour of duty was supposed to be up, I got there in January, and I was due to get out June 17th of 1989.
Right.
They said, well, when you finish your 12 months here, you only have 5 months left in service. February, March, April, May, June. You only have 5 months of service time left. They won't rotate you back to the States unless you have 6 months of time.
Oh,
so
wow.
what they're going to do is, this is going to keep you in Korea for the extra 5 months.
Wow.
And I was basically like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
What are the other options? They said, well, you can add 8 months onto your contract and do a year in the States. So to me, it was the lesser of two evils. Spend an extra 5 months in Korea, or at least go back to the States knowing that they'd send me back to Fort Bragg, and I could do a year in Fort Bragg and then get out. So I opted for the lesser of two evils and added 8 years to my contract and went back to the States and did 8 months at Bragg.
Okay.
So,
Was that just
or another year at Bragg.
okay?
Well, it was kind of good in the beginning, but again, I'd stayed together with this girl for that whole year that I was in Korea. She picked me up when I got back from Korea. We stayed together when I got back in Bragg, and then probably about the time I was left to having about 3 months left of service, she decided to break up, which sucked.
Oh.
Again, I could have stayed 5 months and then been out. So
Yeah.
then I was like, okay. So,
Yeah.
but I did my time and got out.
So back in Fort Bragg, did you do just the same thing that you did when you were there?
I started doing the same thing again, and again I had a high level security clearance. So then I ended up getting put into this one, they call it Ray compound, and I forget what the Ray stood for, but it was like my barracks was right here, and this intel compound was right here, and our chow hall was right here. So basically every day I would have to do our PT, or if we did shift work and I was missing PT, whatever, but I would go into Ray compound and sit there during my shift and just reroute messages where they were supposed to go.
Okay.
So like when Tiananmen Square was going on in '89, I was routing a lot of traffic about Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
It was
That's
crazy.
very cool.
It was crazy. So it was interesting.
Yeah, was that a bit of a shocker to you then when you were there?
What's that?
About Tiananmen Square.
It was kind of
You were in
shocking.
there.
It was kind of shocking they didn't use more force than what they did.
Right.
That was kind of shocking. But I mean,
But it was more like, just like regular stuff. You were kind of expecting it almost.
Yeah, I mean, when the protest started, you just didn't know which direction it was going to turn. So
Okay.
I was just trying to stay up on that. So no. So other than that, then my last 8 months at Bragg and my last 8 months in the service really weren't that bad because that was the kind of job that I had. So
Okay.
I just basically did shift work again and just marked my time until it was time to get out.
So going back a bit, back to Korea, talking about. Let me start over. Okay.
Okay.
So you started in basic as a private, I would
Yes,
assume, right?
private E1.
Okay.
No rank, no nothing. Just went in as low as you could go.
Okay, then how did you? Was it just time or effort, or what made you advance rank?
Time and grade. Once you spend time in, there's certain benchmarks along the way in time that will get you promoted.
Okay.
So, you know, and again, as long as you keep your nose clean and do your work, you get promoted. And you know, or you can have somebody, you know, recommend you for promotion.
Okay.
So I kept my nose clean, and as you know, then I think by the time after your first 6 months, if you're going as an E1 private, you have no rank. Then you turn into an E2, and that's that little chevron deal. They call it mosquito wings.
Yeah.
And then the same thing, a few months later, maybe 6 months more later, if everything has been cool, you get the rock on the bottom of your private first class.
Okay.
So then, and there's other things you can do to work on, and they'll send you to different training schools along the way that you work on picking up promotion points, or you can cross-train in other jobs and pick up promotion points that help you get there. Because there was always scores that you had to meet. That was, you know, it factor in, you know, awards, time and grade, extra things like that to earn promotion points. And the promotion point scores would fluctuate depending on what your main job title was and how many people they had in that title. Okay. So again, if they had a whole bunch of people doing my job, then the promotion points would be real high because they don't need a bunch of chiefs, you know, Indians. But if people started leaving your job rank, then your promotion points would drop, so they could advance your rank. So again, one of the bummers that soured my experience and really pissed me off at the military was, again, it was a pride factor for me. I was a specialist E4 already, and they were going to give me my corporal stripes, and that was a big deal. That's a big deal. Because basically when I was there in Korea, after they rotated those guys out like I was talking about, I was working as an E4, working as a staff sergeant. So I was working 2 grades above my pay grade, and I had a whole bunch of privates that was their first duty station up under me. So I was responsible for a whole shit ton of people. Right. I was basically functioning as a squad sergeant, a squad leader, and I wanted my wings. I wanted my corporal stripes. Somebody in the paperwork area, PAC, effed up the paperwork, and it got kicked back for my stripes. And so then I went back and wanted my stripes to have somebody tell me, oh, it doesn't matter. You only got a few months left anyway. It doesn't matter. However, there was a female that was working in PAC who came in after I did. She got her corporal stripes, but I couldn't get mine. That's a problem. That was a problem for me.
Yeah, I imagine.
Very derogatory term for females in the service was a split tail. She got her stripes pushing paperwork, but I'm out in the field busting my hump, taking care of people, and I can't. Not saying she was the one responsible for messing up my paperwork, but it was just something that pissed me off.
I imagine that was pretty upset.
I was doing my job, and I'm sure she was not responsible for the people that I was responsible for and carrying the responsibilities that I was. But she gets corporal stripes.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
So was that, other than not earning your stripes, was that kind of a big thing for you to get advanced in your rank?
Go through leadership courses and everything else. Like I said, I took all these other things, but no, that was for me. That was just a pride factor. I was leading people. I wanted to. You're a junior non-commissioned officer if you have corporal stripes on.
Right.
So if I ran into another guy that had my same pay grade, if he was a specialist and I was a corporal, he's going to be doing what I tell him to do, because those 2 stripes mean that I have that authority over top of him.
Right.
So it was an ego thing too. I wanted that. I'd worked that role. I felt I'd earned that role. I wanted my reward for working that role.
Right.
And being that role. Okay.
So, but other than, like, so going from E1 to E2 to E3 to E4, were each of those steps pretty big for you, like exciting?
They were okay. I mean, because like I said, as long as you keep your nose clean and do your stuff, E1 to E3 is going to happen.
You're like, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Okay.
You know, where it starts to get a thing is when you start to get to that E4 status and above. Because the next step off of E4 is an E5 is a sergeant. So that's got the 3 rockets or the 3 stripes. That's a sergeant. Yeah. So that means you are officially in charge of some people and in charge of stuff.
Okay.
So then that's when your promotions, that's where you really have to work to get your promotions. But going from E1 to E2 to E3 and even to E4, that comes with time in grade or time in service, and keeping your nose clean. But E4 and beyond, you've got to work to earn. You got to earn those. Okay. You still have to have your time in grade, but you have to do other things to earn those promotion points.
Gotcha. So you finished up in 1990 at Fort Bragg, and then you were already in the States, but did you come back home after that? Or did you go to college?
I packed up everything, and I moved back to Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
I got a full-time job working at Office Depot, probably in March of 90. And then I knew I was going to go back to school in the fall, so I worked full-time up until then, and I went back to school in Dayton, Ohio, St. Clair Community College. Okay. So I had to learn how to learn all over again, which was fine, and I wanted to be back in school at that point in time, so that meant a lot to me. Right. So I did 2 full-time years at St. Clair and a 3rd year part-time, and then transferred out to my 4-year institution. Okay. So it was good times.
I just lost where I was at. So you came back
to
to Dayton. Were you received pretty well? Like,
Oh
people
yeah,
were all happy to see you?
absolutely.
Okay.
My dad and my stepmom still lived in Dayton, Ohio. My main core of friends were still in Dayton, Ohio. And again, it's the same thing. When I had time off, we had weekends or holidays, I would roll back to Dayton and hang out with my buds. So,
okay.
All of my friends were still there, and they were all older now. So let's say we'll add 5 onto 18. So people are 23 and 24 doing their own thing, and they have their own places, and we're all young adults now. So we all do young adult things. So
right,
it was exciting times, and it was good. So I had that great core of people that were some of us were still tight from high school, and other friends that came into the circle. So yeah, it was well received by my
really
friends.
Smooth.
Yeah, it was a seamless transition back home.
That's good. And one last thing. So you came back in, and now you're working obviously as the sports trainer at Barwis. Has the military influenced your life past the military?
Absolutely, it has.
Okay.
Because again, it's one of those things that sometimes, again, you've seen me work in the room a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, it's some of those, especially with large groups. I mean, I've had people look at me before the way I take a hold of a room, and I'm barking orders out and doing something. People are like, "Did you used to be in the military?" And I say, I'm gonna go, "Yeah." They go, "It's kind of obvious." So it's absolutely it's helped. Going into the field of coaching with military experience. It's another one that's put me, I think, heads and shoulders above a lot of my peers.
Yeah. Because
I've already had that experience of being in charge and having to make command decisions, and you got to do what you got to do, what you feel is right, and you make that decision, you roll with it.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So got no trouble with that.
Did it give you a lot of just life lessons as well?
Yeah. The military did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I got back into school, I was heads and shoulders above everybody else.
No, we're good.
My students and how to study. It meant something to me. So the military taught me the discipline and the structure that I needed to survive as a young man. The things that I weren't getting, that I was not getting or held accountable for when I was in high school. So it taught me those things that you need to be successful in the world.
Okay.
And I firmly believe that. When I got back to school, I was all about studying. The whole first year and a half, I had a routine when I got to my 4-year school, especially. I had a part-time job. I would get up in the morning. I worked at a YMCA in a weight room. I would get up and maybe do a workout in the morning, do all my classwork, do my athletic training hours. And if I was working out in the afternoon, I'd work out in the afternoon. I'd get back to my apartment, at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. I'd make some dinner. I'd turn the TV on, and I would sit there and study till about midnight or 1 o'clock. I'd just turn the TV on and have it down low and sit there and study all of my work. I did that for a year and a half. That was my life for a year and a half when I got back to my 4-year school. That was all I did. That was it. That was all I did.
So just very disciplined.
And then that third semester there, that fourth semester, I started to go out a little bit and to do more work, go out and party a little bit with my classmates and everything else. But still, it was not like they were, because I was I was focused on being the best that I could be and learn what I had to learn. So
exactly.
Absolutely, it gave me great discipline, great structure.
Awesome.
Fantastic. It did very well for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And it definitely did. It was.
We good, Brock?
Yeah.
Okay.